This is my take on Asgard. I have spent countless hours recreating in my own way Thor's home city from the Marvel Universe. In this video, I'll show you how I built this city. The Royal Palace is a strange shape. It's definitely the most unique building I've built. I place cylinders made of quartz that descend in height towards the sides. For the top of each spire of the palace, I place columns of quartz blocks and a roof of quartz bricks. I'll use World Edit to just copy and paste this roof onto each one of these spires. You'll notice that most of the buildings in Marvel's Asgard are made of gold. Unfortunately, in Minecraft, gold used in large quantities doesn't look the most attractive. So to give the buildings a holy and majestic feel, I use a block palette that mostly consists of different quartz blocks. I use gold to add accents and details to the build instead. Here I am building a nice accent to add to the front of the palace. I just copy and paste it and fill in the gaps at the front and the back of these accents. Here I add gold to add detail to the front of the palace. I make a variety of different Asgardian designs and patterns inspired by things such as Thor's lightning. I notice a big blank space at the front of the palace that is only comprised of quartz, so I add 3 different sized gold towers. Now I need to add some extra space for the throne room, so I build 3 tiers to the front. This is inspired a bit by Minas Tirith from Lord of the Rings. I will come back later to add some detail to these tiers and to do the throne room. Now all there is to do is to copy the left hand side of the palace and paste it on the right hand side, and then I'll fill in the gaps that I've left at the bottom. Now I'll move on to build an entrance to the palace. Here I am building some columns that really add a grand feeling that Asgard really needs. I move on from the palace and begin to focus on some buildings to fill the streets of Asgard. Specifically, I begin to build small buildings inspired by ancient Rome or Greek architecture. This era of architecture really has a mythical and grand feeling to it, which I think is absolutely perfect for Asgard. I create small buildings which I then use to create a slightly larger building by just connecting them and adding a second story. I like to think of these smaller buildings as part of the ground layer of Asgard. I then add some small cylindrical buildings to add some variety, and then some spires or watchtowers with an Asgardian flag perched majestically at the top. To add to the ground layer and streets of Asgard, I add some nice water fountains, surrounded by some oak leaves. Now I add some more detail by building statues depicting Asgardian warriors standing stoically along the streets. Along the waterfront, I create beacons that would light up the bay during the night. To build these, I create columns and add red and orange stained glass to mimic the beacon's fire. It's a great idea to create these fairly simple and basic buildings that you can repurpose for other builds. For example, here I reuse the beacons to add some detail to the right mountainside. I just connect the columns together to create something almost like Roman aqueducts. And here I repurpose the palace entrance columns from before to create a building of Asgard's middle layer. In Marvel's Asgard, you can see scattered amongst the streets really unique shaped buildings. Here I try to fit this theme and add some strange Asgardian elements through the weird building top. I can also repurpose this building by cutting it in half and using the top of it to create a building that's at the front of a pier. I try to make this pier look a bit more impressive by adding some extra details and depth to the struts. I can again just copy and paste it along to the length I desire. I can then reuse this build and paste it to the other side of the bay. Now I add another unique middle layer building. This building is created using a few extra details on the sides of the building for a grander entrance. This building could really be an Asgardian temple. I now begin to build some larger statues. The first statue is of Thor wielding his mighty hammer Mjolnir. The second statue is of Thor's mischievous brother Loki wielding the scepter that he used on his invasion of Earth. To add the actual streets to Asgard, I used the brush tool with about 60% stone and 40% andesite. I then add edges to the streets with stone and andesite slabs. I also add some water flowing down some street gutters, alongside some quartz walls and some hedge rows made of oak leaves. These little details really add some class to these Asgardian streets. Moving over and through some of these buildings, I'm beginning to really like how Asgard is taking shape. After completing one side of the Asgardian streets, I fly over to the other side and I can continue to add some details to the streets. A great tip for your builds in Minecraft is to use leaves on harsh edges of buildings and streets to smooth them out. This makes it look a little more realistic and is a lot nicer to look at. After these last few details to the streets, I can move on to the building that marks one side of the Bifrost Bridge, which contains the dimensional energy that Thor and his allies use to travel between the realms. This building serves no purpose known to me other than looking sick. I make this building use a cylindrical shape that goes to the seafloor, and then adding a larger cylindrical shape for the top. I then add some leaves that elegantly drape the building sides, alongside a couple of Asgard's iconic strange shaped spires. Now that I have finished with the building, I can remove the middle of it to make way for the Bifrost Bridge. To make the bridge, first I place glass that spans Asgard city and bay. I then use some formulas I made to punch into World Edit. These formulas dictate the proportions of blue, light blue, cyan, magenta, purple, pink, red and black stained glass that the initial glass is replaced with. This results in the random scattering of the colours that creates the cool effect of the Bifrost. The towers that line the Bifrost are characterised with the same strange Asgard spire shape and some elements of a Roman column at their base. This type of building really just needs experimentation and trial and error to see what sort of shapes and looks that you like. Now I can create the Himmelbjorg. I hope I pronounced that right. This is the building in which the Bifrost is generated and directed. This building is characterised by a large dome and what looks like some structures that hold it in place. As I was building this, I realised that it really looks and acts like a giant turret that shoots giant rainbows across the galaxy. So I've built the energy outlets on the side using gold and sea lanterns, and now I can create the turret part. I really wanted to build this in action, so I built it straight up initially, adding stained glass that represents the energy blasting out of the structure. I can then rotate it and paste it in its firing position. Now I quickly put together the inside, including the portal made of stained glass and sea lanterns. I move on to finish the Asgard vista, placing buildings on the outside edges of the city and mountain range. In your own builds, remember to think about all the angles which you will be viewing the build from. Finally, I add a stained glass roof to all the tiers above the throne room using the same sort of Asgard designs as before. To finish off the entrance, I create a Roman influenced archway, adding a little Asgardian flair. As I fly inside, I add an ornate floor made of chiseled quartz and gold. I also need to remove some walls to add some more space and light, alongside filling in some of the roof with more stained glass. Now, I add some stairs up to the throne and some Asgardian pattern details to the walls. I then create some ornate columns made of more chiseled quartz that reach up to the high ceiling. Then I finally create the throne to Asgard, made of gold and quartz. Its design extravagantly fits the theme. Thanks for watching, guys. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you want to see built. Cheers.